thank you, Nolo, for this opportunity. It's great to be here. I've already learned a lot from all the panelists. So I'm Marcus Laws, the project lead for Café del Futuro Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities, Climate Smart Puerto Rican Coffee. I'm joined here by CJ Acosta, the executive director for our main technical partner, PROCAFE, which Café del Futuro is significantly based off the design of some of the projects that they've implemented over the past couple of years. So I'm going to try and go through my presentation relatively quickly. The slides are in Spanish, but I'm taking the lead from Nolo's Aria Lugo and representatives from USDA's lead and doing it in English. I'm going to try and go over the current situation, summary of the project, our partners, and some potential impacts. So there's been a lot of talk about the impact from Hurricanes Maria, Irma, as well as Fiona. Maria and Irma, they damaged about 144 million trees overall. 20 million of those were coffee and shade. Those resulted in about 85% of the losses in the coffee harvest for the year of 2017. And then Fiona came around last year, knocked out about 35% of the harvest for that year going into this year. Because of those losses, there's been a lot of replanting, renovation of the farms. After 2017, there was the agricultural census that identified about 2,445 farm landowners or operators. Of those, there's about 13,000 acres, cuerdas as the measurement is used here in Puerto Rico. 818 farms are under shade, 1,600 or so under sun. So as we learned from Aria Lugo, there's a fine balance that you're trying to go for, return on investment, quality, resilience, all sorts of things like that, and factors to take into account. What we're seeing here is a farm in Maricao that is under complete open to sun. This requires a lot more investments. It's more vulnerable to climate shocks, and you don't get the same quality of coffee, cherry, or grape as you would from agroforestry systems, although you might get increases in your productivity. So an average farm size in Puerto Rico, coffee farm size is about under 5.5 acres. Average age of the farmer, 61 years. They have low educational attainment. 61% of the producers have a GED or less. 79% of all producers surveyed in 2017, 2018 received $39,000 in net annual income, fairly low. Falls under the Department of Health and Human Services poverty rates. Current harvest is estimated around 60,000 quintales. So that's about an average of 6 quintales per acre or cuerda. There's high levels of labor shortages, lots of migration for urban areas from rural areas to urban areas, lots of youth migration, and lots of migration in general to the United States. NCBA CLUSA, the National Cooperative Business Association, lead for this project. We have Cooperative that shows up twice in our name, and one of our other partners is La Liga de Cooperativas de Puerto Rico. So cooperatives tend to be fairly important to us, and within the cooperative movement here in Puerto Rico, there's only one that's dedicated to coffee production. That's Cooperativa Agrocomercial. Café Cibales is their brand, although there are several smaller cooperatives that do market and commercialize coffee from small producers on the island. So what we're seeing in this situation is that there's thousands of small producers, the low production, low income, low educational attainment, dealing with shortages of labor, and not many organizations that represent their interests. Not business organizations such as cooperatives, although PROCAFE is a fantastic nonprofit. It has about 500 members and has reached about 1,400 of these 2,400 coffee producers over its life past 5 years. Café del Futuro, one of the three projects awarded to Puerto Rico through the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities program. We have a budget of about $15 million. We're going from until September 17th, 2027. Our target is to reach about 2,000 of those coffee producers, 10,000 acres under improved climate smart conservation practices. Our commodity is specialty coffee, Café Arabica, and then hardwood or Madera Fina. Our objectives are primarily to respond to the impacts from the hurricanes, promote economic and social resilience in the La Cordillera Central, promote the transition from sun production to semi-shade, to increase resilience, as well as economic resilience as well as environmental resilience. And we're also trying to promote the use of organic, not certified organic, but organic, locally produced inputs. I'll get into that a little bit later. We have about 2.7 million trees of coffee, shade, and hardwood to distribute to these farmers. We're also seeking to quantify the carbon footprint from the conservation practices on these farms. Obviously, we're looking to open and expand new markets for these forestry products or coffee, shade, and others. And then also promote the cooperative model as a solution to some of the challenges that smallholder farmers face here in Puerto Rico. We're working primarily in these 10 municipalities that you see here, where 90% of the coffee producers currently are located. We're not exclusive, but this is where we're concentrating our activities. Our main quantitative objectives: 2,000 farmers, 10,000 acres, 2,750,000 trees. 144,000 of those are hardwood and shade. 10,000 people overall reach. So that includes not just the farm owner or operator, their workers, their family, other individuals who can support the coffee industry. We have a grant fund of $5 million. So this is directly cash incentives that go directly to the farmers to help them with the implementation of the climate smart agroforestry practices. We've estimated that we'll sequester around 40,000 new metric tons of greenhouse gases through the implementation of these practices. And we're requesting that for every coffee tree distributed, the producer, farmer, landowner contribute 20 cents. So they're making an actual investment, an economic contribution to their farm business, instead of just receiving handouts. This is the list of 20 practices that we are promoting, but we're focusing on multi-story forest farming. So that's 379, establishment of windbreaks, barriers, masa forestal, and others that are related to planting trees, and in multi-story systems. These are our requirements for eligibility. Some of these are mandated by NRCS, so registered with Farm Service Agency. You got to complete 80, 2047, 80, 1026 forms. You need to do an environmental assessment through using the CPA 52 form of each farm that's enrolled in the project, which I have to say, this is a big challenge. We understand that here in Puerto Rico, the NRCS technical staff only does about 12 of these per person per year, and we're looking to do about 2,000 of them. So we're definitely increasing the workload or reducing the workload on the front end, but on the back end, increasing the workload for the reviewers of these CPA 52s. And then, as I said, we're looking to have the farmers contribute about 20 cents per coffee tree. That's the big one. big requirements specific for the project, as well as we're going to be distributing $500 for the implementation of at least 3 practices up to 6 acres after they've implemented the practices for at least 6 months. Moving on. Getting into the partnerships, NCBA CLUSA, National Cooperative Business Association, we've been around since 1916. We're the apex organization for cooperative businesses in the United States. We have about 350 cooperative members right now. Some of these are sector-specific associations. So you can see on this slide, National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, National Co-op Grocers. This is actually one of the buyers that we brought into the project. They're very interested in marketing within their network of hundreds of consumer co-ops, finished Puerto Rican coffee that has a label that says that the coffee produced on this project is 100% produced in Puerto Rico and is 100% climate smart, backed with Scope 3 certification by one of our other partners. So we've been doing NCBA CLUSA since 1916. We do a lot of advocacy on behalf of the cooperative sector, thought leadership, training, education. We've been implementing international cooperative development projects for about 75 years. We do cooperatives. We think these are the best way to distribute wealth. They're based on cooperative enterprises, private enterprises are based on 7 principles. They're owned and operated by their members, responding to needs within their communities. They're not based on shareholder interests. And according to some studies, the cooperatives tend to be more resilient to economic crisis, environmental shocks, and various other things. So these are the 7 cooperative principles: voluntary and open membership, democratic control, economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, information, cooperation amongst cooperatives, and interest for the community. NCBA CLUSA, since for more than 75 years, as I mentioned before, we've been working internationally. We've had a presence in about 89 countries. We have a portfolio of about $250 million in 18 projects currently. In the grand scheme of things, within our industry, we're really a medium-sized organization. We only have about 50 staff out of our headquarters in DC. The majority of the staff is locally employed in all the different countries and projects that we have operating. Currently, we are implementing about 11 projects through USDA, 3 of them in U.S. territory, one of them Puerto Rico, Café del Futuro, a rural development funded socially disadvantaged group grant. The third is strengthening co-op capacity for historically underserved farmers. This one is actually distributing funding to about 62 organizations to promote and provide technical assistance and outreach for the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program that Undersecretary Montano Green spoke about earlier. Many of the other USDA projects are the Foreign Ag Service, Food for Progress, or McGovern Dole type projects. Our partners on Café del Futuro, PROCAFE, Productores de Café de Puerto Rico, DJ Acosta will speak more in depth about them, but since 2019, they've been implementing agroforestry related projects benefiting coffee producers across the island. They have about 500 members, done 3 major projects. On the project on Café del Futuro, they're in charge of technical assistance, outreach, farm follow-up, collection of data, and assisting with the distribution of trees. We got the University of Puerto Rico, the Experimental Ag Station, based out of mano-Y-ola. They're in charge of our innovative model for monitoring, measuring, reporting, and verifying the greenhouse gases from the implementation of the climate smart practices. Sustain Cert, they are a global leader in verifying greenhouse gas methodology. So they'll be providing what is called Scope 3 verification and certification to the methodology implemented by the university. This, we hope, will be able to support and back a certification or a label that will be attributing to the final product, final coffee product once towards the end of the project. Scope 3 is also very interesting for industry corporations as they're seeking to reduce and quantify their greenhouse gas emissions along their supply chain. And then we have La Liga de Cooperativos de Puerto Rico to help with the promotion, formation, and, as they said, enamoramiento del modelo cooperativo. We're seeking to have all these potential impacts. I mean, 51% of our budget is basically incentives for producers. So that's in between the cash incentives that I mentioned, $500 per acre for the implementation of at least 3 practices over 6 months, plus the amount of trees. We're hoping that the practices that we promote will help increase production, along with the improved management of the individual's farm businesses. Currently, as I said, there's about 6 quintales per acre. We're hoping to increase the production and yields to about 10 quintales per acre. We hope that these practices will help reduce costs of production. NCBA CLUSA, through one of its projects in El Salvador, one of the Food for Progress, USDA funded Food for Progress projects in El Salvador, we managed to reduce cost of production by 30 to 60% for farmers that were able to apply and create their locally sourced and produced organic inputs. Seeking to expand or open new markets, especially carbon, but with coffee, there's lots of opportunities from the local community to our local market. There's, as we know, as I mentioned or had on my one of the first slides, as an island, 85% of what's consumed on the island is imported, including coffee, which locally produced coffee only meets about 6 to 10%, probably less than 10% of the demand. So there's opportunities to increase the market access there, as well as exports with the third wave coffee shops, national co-op grocers, and others, as I mentioned, looking to diversify income for the farmers through hardwood, carbon markets, environmental, planting close to 3 million trees. That it's going to help increase the resilience of the farmers toward climate impacts. So I want to pass the mic over to CJ.
Just wanted to expand a little bit more on what Marcos has already said of PROCAFE. This organization is organized. It's basically the voice of over 500 coffee producers who organized themselves after Hurricane Maria, when 85% of our coffee production got blasted. Basically, you have heard about how the forests in the island suffered. Well, that included the coffee forests that we had. And so far, this organization has managed to plant over 3.2 million trees, and that is seeing its continuation in Café del Futuro with 2.7 million trees more. And this is kind of the work we focus in. We are not in the business of producing coffee ourselves. We're in the business of supporting those who are doing exactly that. And it's most of our members are smallholder coffee producers. They have a voice and vote on the decisions of the organization. And apart from Café del Futuro, we are also now doing a lot of both philanthropic fundraising and grant writing in support of those farmers and the communities that they live on, right? One of the projects that we're going to be doing probably soon is very related to bringing solar energy to those very same communities, especially the most vulnerable people in those communities. And that's what we believe in. We have a mission to not only support the economic well-being and development of the coffee producers. That we have 500 members, but we'll be impacting probably over 2,000 of them in the next few years, but also their communities and the people who work for them. The most recent example of that was the Farm and Food Workers program, in which we were part of together with Hispanic Federation, part of the channel to deliver those $700 cards to the people who kept working throughout the pandemic on the coffee farms and on the meat industry. So we have a very good track record of delivering these services at scale for this community, and that's what we are building upon.
Now I'd like to give the floor to Mariana and Lisette for them to talk about climate-smart agriculture for coffee and cacao in Puerto Rico. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this space and the opportunity to talk about this great project. I'm going to talk about a very big project. This is a 7-minute presentation, but if you have any questions, we'll also be able to answer them at the end. First of all, I would like to talk about CRCD, who we are. CRCD is the Caribbean Regenerative Community Development. It was founded in 2021 by a group of colleagues with a vision in common, and they wanted to continue working on preservation efforts, but focus on the regeneration of our natural resources and our communities. This initiative and this project is a collaboration between several organizations, and it was proposed to help the growers to implement preservation efforts that will help to mitigate climate change efforts. The different institutions that work together have worked directly with these growers for many years on the development of management plans under the stewardship program, and we knew that there's a need to help in the sense of the implementation of several of the recommendations that we included in those plans. So that's how Smart Guide is born. It's a pilot project that began with cacao and coffee growers in Puerto Rico to give them assistance in the implementation of agricultural practices that are climate smart, and we know that are compatible with a product that has a better quality and better conditions for the workers, cost reduction, and also it helps to mitigate the effects of climate change. This project also focuses on improving the markets for these products by catering for the preferences of the consumers, that we know that in the last years they want to make sure that not only to have a good product with good quality, but it also has social and environmental positive impact. So Smart AGPR in Puerto Rico mostly focuses on the implementation, monitoring, and marketing. The implementation of the practices will focus on coffee and cacao farms in order to impact 2,000 acres, and we'll focus on 2 preservation practices, which are agroforestry and working with biochar. And we will give all the necessary material and the labor that's necessary for implementing the practices. We will also monitor the benefits associated to these practices and the GHGs, and we will develop a label for climate-friendly agriculture. This won't be for a specific product, but it will apply for every agricultural product that is produced by following these principles. In the agroforestry component, we're going to focus on the establishment or improvement of the shade for cacao and coffee with native species. The main species that we will be planting include guava, mocha, cojoba, and others. These are the common names that we have in Puerto Rico for these species. And in this component, we have the collaboration of the Department of Natural Resources, Environmental Resources, and also the Finca Acosta in Cabo Rojo. And they will give us the space to propagate the trees. And with this component, we will be able to plant approximately 60,000 native trees. We will also apply biochar. As you know, biochar is a coal that's produced with organic material through a process that's called pyrolysis, which is the decomposition, thermal decomposition in the absence of oxygen. And the biochar that we'll use comes from bamboo, and it will be given to us by biorestorative ideas that's located in Hormigueros, and this bamboo-based product is going to be applied in the soil, and this biochar can be used as a sponge in the soil, and many times there are components that are scarce in the soil, so we have to inoculate it. And we're going to use molasses, fish, and biomass, and we'll produce the biochar that's going to be applied. The fish that we're going to use is going to be obtained from the waste from the fisheries, and that's why we'll also be using this for fertilizing our soil. And hopefully we'll get micronutrients, phosphorus, potassium, all of the things that are necessary for plant growth. It's important to mention that we'll establish protocols for quality to guarantee that no damaging component reaches the soil of the farms. Another aspect has to do with monitoring, and we will use quantitative and qualitative methods, and we expect to be able to quantify the emissions and gas sequestration of GHGs in the soil, and also in the biomass of the trees that give us shade, and also to quantify the reduction in the use of fertilizers that are synthetic. In the qualitative methods, we will develop a survey where the participants will be able to answer this every year to know what's the yield of the crops, the health of the crops, the use of fertilizers, among different things that will help us in the to analyze the data in order to have the quantitative monitoring. In this component, we have the collaboration of the Center for Preservation of Landscape from the Puerto Rico University in Rio Piedra, the Wisconsin University in Madison, and the Sustainable Institute. Some important points that I'd like to mention is that we just launched the credit 4 months ago, and it has been well received. The growers have demonstrated a lot of interest to participate in this initiative, not only in the practices that we will be implementing, but also on the workshops that will be offered. We already had our first workshop last month, and we talked about the benefits of biochar. At the end of this month, we'll have another presential component in this workshop in Eureka. And we will hope to continue doing workshops about climate change monitoring and practice to be implemented. These workshops are going to give follow-up to all growers in Puerto Rico, not necessarily to the ones for coffee and cacao only, since we know that there's a lot of interest to get trained and to obtain the necessary information. And the goal is to promote for these practices to be adopted at a long term in the future. I hope I was able to cover everything, but if you have any questions, please let me know. These are our social networks, our emails. You can find us like CRCD Puerto Rico in Facebook and Instagram. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, first of all, and also Mariana. We are very happy because we've been working with a group of youngsters that have a vision, and they have a lot of commitment and ethics that inspire everyone. And this is a message that we convey everywhere we go. And apart from all of the work with growers for many years and the relationship that we've created with them, we're opening a new door. And CRCB has opened that new door, so thank you. Now I'm going to give the floor to José Sánchez, and he's going to talk about the initiative that they have for climate smart commodities.
Nolo, and thank you for inviting me again on this 5th annual Symposium of mano-Y-ola. I'm very honored to be working with you again in this project. So let's begin with my presentation. Our project, it's called Hispanic Climate Smart Commodities Initiative, and our overview, Hispanic Climate Smart Commodities Initiative acknowledges the multiple challenges faced by farmers globally, especially the disproportionate impact of climate change on low-income small farmers. It emphasizes the need to support local agriculture, particularly in regions like Puerto Rico and Florida, which are vulnerable to extreme weather events and other climate-related risks. Our budget, approved budget, is $4,926,209. So, and we have a wonderful team of partners, and we have mano-Y-ola, that is the host of this symposium, that is going to be in charge of the data, and Victus Climate Solutions that are going to be in charge of establishing the crop modeling and the carbon sequestration quantification, and Hacienda Santa Elena, who's going to be in charge of the climate smart curriculum, and among other wonderful players that are going to be working in this project. Our objectives. Our objectives are, the first one is enhance farmer capacity. We will develop the capacity of Hispanic pasture and forage farmers in Puerto Rico and Florida to diversify and increase production while implementing climate smart methods and quantifying environmental outcomes. The other objective is the knowledge empowerment. We will foster Hispanic farmers' climate smart knowledge, climate smart practices, and quantification analysis, enabling them to gain self-sufficiency, enhance land and production value, and expand networks within culturally relevant context. The next objective is the on-farm testing. We will adopt and test modeling ecosystems on farms to implement climate smart practices that yield positive environmental outcomes, such as carbon sequestration and water quality improvement. And the last one is market expansion. We will design and implement a culturally appropriate procedure to certify climate smart commodities produced by Hispanic farmers, thereby expanding their market opportunities and creating new revenue streams. In terms of our approach, our initiative will employ a culturally sensitive and a proactive approach to address the unique challenges faced by Hispanic farmers. Our key elements of the approach include cultural relevance, tailoring outreach, education, and incentives to align with the cultural context and challenges faced by Hispanic farmers. Bilingual climate smart outreach specialists, assigning dedicated specialists to provide personalized support and facilitate engagement with farmers, ensuring language and cultural barriers are overcome. And collaboration and networking. We will establish collaborations with Hispanic professionals and organizations to foster a strong network to knowledge exchange and support. Also, we will have financial assistance. We will provide financial incentives to farmers based on their engagement in the program, encouraging ongoing participation and the implementation of climate smart practices. Also, we will have data collection and assessment, conducting comprehensive assessments of participating farmers to evaluate current practices, potential improvements, and environmental impact, utilizing tools such as Comet Planet for quantification analysis. And education and training, we will develop a bilingual climate smart curriculum and delivering training sessions, both in person and virtually, using various platforms, social media, and newsletters. And the last one is the certification and market expansion. We will design a certification process for climate smart commodities produced by Hispanic farmers to expand their market opportunities and revenue streams. In these terms, we will help them establish primarily a silvopasture system with breadfruit and trees and other complementary practices endorsed by the NRCS. In terms of the geographical focus, our project initially will focus on Puerto Rico and specific counties in Florida, targeting Hispanic pasture and forage farmers. Outreach will concentrate on high-density Hispanic farming areas with plans to expand gradually. In Puerto Rico specifically, our initiative will focus on farms and cropland used for pasture and grazing on the island of Puerto Rico across the 78 municipalities. According to the 2018 NAS data, there are almost 3,000 farms on the island covering 205,000 acres. In addition, based on NRCS data for the last 10 years, from 2012 to 2020, there are 1,283 active pasture-related conservation contracts, with 871 farmers covering 87,845 acres. There are also 427 forage-related cost-sharing contracts that cover almost 30,000 acres for the last 10 years. Our outreach and smart climate focus will be to start on the north central part of Puerto Rico. The dairy production is where the dairy production is the highest, and the southwestern where the crops and beef production are enhanced. In Florida, there are 5,267 Hispanic farmers, according to the agricultural census of the 2017. Based on the NAS data, the state's pasture land areas are in the state central region and northern counties. Therefore, farmer climate smart outreach and recruitment will start in counties with the highest Hispanic pasture land farmers. And these include Alachua, Suwannee, Highlands, Osceola, and Charlotte counties, among others. However, our initiative aims to reach all counties and Hispanic pasture land farmers in the state using face-to-face group demonstrations and/or virtually. In terms of our deliverables, we will have first a comprehensive farm assessments, detailed assessments of participating farms, identifying current practices, challenges, and potential improvements. Our bilingual climate smart curriculum will be developed by our biggest brother, Edwin Mas. We'll have a development and delivery of a comprehensive bilingual curriculum covering climate smart practices, conservation methods, and quantification techniques. The certification protocol, we will design a culturally appropriate certification protocol for climate smart commodities, ensuring the market expansion for Hispanic farmers. The financial incentives payments, the administration of financial incentive payments are going to be based on farmers' engagement, climate smart adoption of practices, and quantifiable outcomes. And the outreach and training materials will develop and distribute bilingual outreach materials, virtual tools, tutorials, and workshops to enhance farmers' knowledge and self-sufficiency. About our timeline, we will have a proactive campaign. We will launch a publicity to reach Hispanic farmers to participate in our events and demonstration at a Farmers Leader Farm. And we'll have orientation and producer enrollment, second point in our timeline. Climate Smart staff will lead the enrollment and registration of participants. General demographic information will be collected, and our staff will provide the farmers with an incentive payment estimate determined by the size of the farming operation and the farmer's interest in engaging with a climate smart curriculum and implementing climate smart practices. The next one is farm assessments. We will schedule climate smart farm readiness assessments, visits to local farmers. The assessments themes include questions and data collection related to understanding climate smart, assessing the potential and interest of the farmers' landowners' ability to implement conservation and climate smart practices, historic operational on-farm and field level data, evaluation of the financial cost benefit of climate smart practices implementation, and evaluation of farmers' relationship with USDA cost sharing programs, and the assessment of potential markets resulting in climate smart commodities. About the climate smart curriculums, the farmers who accept the payments estimate will enter into a contract with us, and we will set the terms of participation, including participation in a climate smart curriculum and on-farm data collection. The incentives payments, Victus will provide the first year's incentive payment within 2 weeks of the contract being with a farmer. This upfront payment addresses a major barrier to entry for farmers who may otherwise lack the financial resources to fund the upfront cost of lending their time to participate in the program. And the climate smart practices quantification, historic on-farm data is going to be collected. The potential environmental impact of climate smart practices is going to be quantified. Soil samples will be collected, fields will be inspected, and attendance and participation in the climate smart curriculum will be confirmed. Once completed, the farmers receive a second incentive payment, and if farmers are non-compliant and or fail to participate, the remaining payment will be withheld. This process continues through the third year with the remaining payments if the farmers are compliant with the program. So as you see, we will have a very comprehensive program. We will be establishing our primarily focus will be silvopasture systems and other complementary practices to be able to collect data through the whole 3 years of this project to see how the change to climate smart practices are better for our producers. Cattle will establish focus on beef and dairy cattle producers and small ruminants producers. So this is our project. We are very happy to present it to you, and if you have any question, we are open to answer it.
Thank you very much, Marcos, CJ, Jose, Mariana, Lisette, for your presentations. We would like to invite the participants to see the recordings. If there are some questions there, we'll give them to the panelists. One of the things that Lisette said, it's something that echoed with me, is that in 1959, I lived close to coffee plantations, and my father was a specialist in agricultural extension in coffee, and that's how my life began. And I'm really happy to see how the youth, people that are a lot younger than me, are taking the lead, and not only for products like coffee, but also looking for new markets for Hispanic growers, especially in Puerto Rico. And I'm going to say something that I think that a lot of people know, but we have the best coffee in the world. So yeah, that's my bias. Thank you very much to the panelists, and we'll meet in the next presentation. Thank you once again.